is how many people would summarize the comments made in your average CinemaSins video. But are they right? Could you summarize CinemaSins content as or is it more of a or a haha? That question, and questions like it, are the ones we're going to be answering today in this series where I break down a CinemaSins video, specifically everything wrong with Avengers Infinity War. Let's just carry on with it, shall we? Right, before we get back into the sins, here's the obligatory part where I say if you haven't seen parts 1 through 3 yet, you should probably do that first. I mean, you don't have to, but this is a series and it's best viewed in chronological order. And that's all the preamble we need, so let's just jump straight back into the video. Sin number 52.
If Thanos gets me, I want you to promise me you'll kill me.
One other thing you could do, just find a distant planet to live on, lay low, find a cave, maybe find Spock, and don't allow Thanos to ever get near you.
Okay, so that's what we're working with. It's a second, if Gamora knows she's important to Thanos' plan, why doesn't she just run and hide from Thanos, Sin? Now, your first reaction to this may be quite similar to mine, and that I thought, well, Thanos probably just has a way to find her, right? Once he's collected all of my second favourite set of OP colourful space rocks, minus the Soul Stone if he doesn't have Gamora yet, maybe they'll grant him a power that'll help him find her, meaning that all hiding is going to achieve is delaying Thanos. However, the movie itself tells us that this wouldn't have been the case, that Thanos wouldn't have been able to find Gamora.
You knew I'd come.
I counted on it.
According to Thanos himself, he counted on Gamora coming to find him instead of running away to hide. And while it's absolutely possible that Thanos was maybe lying about this, or anything, you know, it is possible to come up with an explanation that explains this away, but there's no evidence in the text to support any of those explanations. Basically, the evidence we actually have stacks up in Jeremy's favour here.
Sin 53.
Movie characters think that a promise will be a bond if they swear on a loved one, but of course it doesn't work that way, cliché.
And having just started off with a sin that's fair enough, this one is pretty bullshit. Gamora is trying to have a serious moment with Peter, but he's being all like, wah, 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 wah. That was me trying to make it clear that he wasn't taking it seriously. If you want to hire me as a voice actor, my DMs are always open. Peter cares a huge amount about his mother, and Gamora understands this, and brings up something that Peter takes incredibly seriously so that he can understand how seriously she is taking this matter. This doesn't only make sense as a way that these two characters would communicate, it also really builds on their relationship and shows how close they've gotten. And
Of course it doesn't work that way.
no, it does. Have you seen this film? Peter keeps absolutely true to his word on this. Probably because she found a neat way of explaining that she was being absolutely serious and this was important to her. And yeah, Thanos manages to stop him, but that doesn't mean this promise is ineffective. It seems when Jeremy says, and of course it doesn't work that way, what he actually means is, it does work that way, like, explicitly. This sin is absolutely wrong, and also I would say not a joke. He just sort of makes a mistake and then says the word cliché at the end. Doesn't really strike me as an attempt at comedy. Sin 54. Sin 54.
I realize she has a hate boner of justice, but goddamn, what was she thinking? She's the one that's been reminding others how fucking powerful Thanos is.
Which is why she tries to immediately kill him while he's off guard.
I just like the phrase hate boner of justice.
I mean...
I'm gonna rename my channel just a second.
So there's some context that Jeremy decides to omit from this one, and that's that Thanos knows exactly where the Guardians are and is on his way towards them. They have nowhere they can run to without being seen, and Thanos is about to get to where they're hiding. Gamora's only real two options at this point are to try and get away, but Thanos will see her and probably be able to follow her, or to try and jump him. She probably knows that this is probably a losing battle, but she also knows that if Thanos isn't stopped, half the universe will die, and this is something she's prepared to die herself to prevent. This action makes sense both logically and within her character. 55!
Premature self-reprobation.
So first and foremost, this sin clearly isn't inaccurate, that definitely is what's happening here. However, it goes without saying that that's not a problem because Gamora is acting appropriately given the situation. However, this doesn't seem to be being presented to us as a nitpick, more just pointing out something that's happening on screen. We've had sins like this before.
Premature jubilation.
This is something that can't really be counted as a nitpick or a criticism, so the only question remains is it humour? And I don't think so. I don't think you could call this even an attempt at comedy. Like, where is the humour in this line supposed to come from? If I'm missing something, let me know, but I don't think there's a joke here. We are the 456.
You knew I'd come.
I counted on it.
So he assumed that the Guardian ship would get the distress signal from the statesman, they'd follow it, they'd just so happen to run into Thor, he'd tell them about the Reality Stone, and that she would agree to come here? This is f***ing impossibly brilliant. He didn't even tell Thor he'd be coming here. He just told his minions to get the 2 stones on Earth and meet him at Titan.
This one, while it may seem reasonable at first glance, is incredibly poorly argued. Jeremy does a great job at making Thanos' ability to predict the Guardians were going to come and stop him sound ridiculous. And he does that by implying that Thanos must have predicted the exact course of events as they happened, which is incredibly silly. Really? Thanos was able to predict that Thor would tell the Guardians to go to nowhere and that the Guardians would find Thor and that... No, Thanos predicted that Gamora would try and stop him. That's it. That's all he needed to predict. It's been a week since he destroyed Xandar and took the stone from there, so it's not exactly hidden what he's doing. Now, whether or not it's reasonable for him to assume that the Guardians will find out where the stones actually are and where he's going is another matter. We don't really know how closely kept the secret of where all of the stones are actually is. We don't know how many people actually know their locations. However, we do know that lots of people know Thanos' location because he launched an attack on Nowhere. Now, everyone who was on Nowhere, and probably a lot more people, know that that's where Thanos is. Basically, all the information that the Guardians need to find out in order to go and try and stop Thanos shouldn't be that hard to come by. Jeremy's just made it sound like it is by implying that the only way that this could have happened is the exact way it did happen, which simply isn't true. The sin is incredibly flimsy, and all of the evidence being used to support this is, how should I put this? Bullshit.
So he assumed that the Guardian ship would get the distress signal from the statesman, they'd follow it.
No.
Sin number 57.
The only reason he pulls the trigger here is because the movie knows it's going to undo the act and keep Gamora alive for now. His love for her and dopey puppy dog nature 100% does not jive with his willfully pulling the trigger here.
So, in my experience, this is a common CinemaSins trope that spans quite a lot of their content. You have 2 parts of a movie that justify each other, essentially. In this case, you have the promise that Peter makes to Gamora and the way that whole scene is handled, along with Peter actually going through with that promise. The CinemaSins trope is to then essentially go, that thing you're trying to justify will never happen. Oh, it did? Well, it shouldn't have. The logic is completely circular. Essentially, thing B because thing A, and thing A because thing B. Or, essentially, it's true because I said it is.
He's digging a hole, isn't he? Further and further with this.
No, Peter Quill absolutely is a puppy dog, but that doesn't mean he's incapable of making hard decisions. Sure, he's absolutely an emotionally driven character who's very susceptible to things like anger. We know he understands what's at stake, we know he knows that Gamora is important to it. We also see him labor over the decision for ages trying to mentally bargain his way out of it. The fact that he chooses save the universe and also keep my promise to Gamora over keep Gamora alive isn't out of character for him. Maybe it would be if he didn't have time to think and was acting purely based on his emotions, but he did. In fact, if Peter decided not to shoot her, I could totally see you making a sin where you say, really dude? The entire universe is at stake. Actually, hang on a second.
I know we like him, and she loves him, but honestly, kill his ass and destroy the stone, you idiots. The universe is at stake.
I give this sin a wah. Sin 58.
Why do Drax and Mantis go back to normal when Thanos leaves? The stone powers aren't proximity-based, but somehow the damage he did was only temporary.
Notice that Thanos often favors non-lethal solutions in combat. Unless someone is part of one of his purges or he needs them dead for strategic reasons, Thanos doesn't tend to kill. And of course this is absolutely consistent with his motivation of preserving life. The reason that Drax and Mantis go unharmed here is that my boy Chunky Grape doesn't want to harm them. He considers them non-threats and sees no reason to do any more than temporarily incapacitate them.
Over the top, assholey, movie nitpicking for comedy's sake.
Asking questions that demonstrate ignorance of the film completely deadpan.
So like if the guys that ran Mystery Science Theater 3000 were all
inept. We're 10 away.
This is a hologram of Ross, whose physical body is in a completely different room somewhere in the country. And yet he's able to walk around this room like he's physically in this one. Is he in a replica room with a virtual reality display? And if so, there should be a camera somewhere in here tracking his eye movements so he can face the right way when he's talking to people.
Okay, so I know, you know, we all know that the reason that this kind of thing isn't usually explained in films, as in the internal mechanics of, say, holograms, is because it doesn't really matter to the story and it's not important. Sinning unexplained technology or even just holograms is a CinemaSins trope of its own, really.
Why does the hologram camera pick up the glass and coaster but nothing else about their surroundings? I want to know how holograms actually work. Is there a booth you step inside? From the Emperor's perspective, does he see these two guys sitting down as holograms on opposite sides of a table?
Now, hologram sins can be reasonable. This one isn't, though. Like when he points out that for a specific hologram to work, the character would have to be sitting in an identical chair to the one their hologram is being projected into.
What about the droid attack on the Wookiees?
What about the droid attack on the Wookiees, Ki-Adi Mundi? When it comes to the Ross hologram, though, there's nothing so unreasonable. All of the furniture from the room that Ross is in is projected into this room. There's no reason not to assume that it doesn't work the same way the other way around. Ross doesn't need cameras tracking his eyes. What the fuck are you talking about? He just needs the equivalent projection in the room that he is in. It seems that CinemaSins are so used to mentioning holograms that now they do it regardless of whether or not they've actually got something that's a nitpick.
All the stuff they added in just to create bloat, I can't get past it personally. I really can't.
6. Sinsty.
No one in this movie should own a Rickenbacker bass and have it displayed on a floor stand in some kind of library. This guitar is the biggest lie the MCU ever told. I've played one of these. Tell me, Congressman, have you ever played a Rickenbacker bass?
Yes, absolutely no one in the Avengers facility should have something expensive that they just sort of leave around. That would be ridiculous behavior for all of the Avengers. A famously frugal, careful, and discreet group of people. That said, though, I'm not even sure what Jeremy is even trying to communicate with this sin. It comes across as more word salad than anything with meaning to me. I doubt that he's saying that it actually shouldn't be there or that it's poor world building or anything. I think he's just riffing. I don't really think it's funny, but I understand how someone could, so let's move on. Sin number 61.
Where's the fight?
Fucking Bucky.
It's a running joke, apparently.
He says that every time Bucky shows up. Just like, okay.
Why?
You don't like Bucky, I guess. It must have been awkward in Civil War. He shows up a lot in that.
I like Bucky.
Well, you're wrong.
Fuck you. I like him.
Wait, are you implying that you don't like CinemaSins?
Yes.
That's just rude.
What's this? Am I gonna?
So, yeah, it's just a joke. It clearly doesn't misrepresent the film in any way. Bucky is on screen and he's fucking. So, let's move on. Sin 62.
Are we just gonna gloss over the fact that a Stark shoulder missile from Earth easily blasts a hole in the hull of this alien spaceship?
This one was silly. Whether or not the missile should have been able to destroy this spaceship from the inside is a whole discussion. We have seen that the donuts are weaponized donuts, they're being used for war purposes, so it would make sense that they're armored and or shielded. And if he'd actually said any of that, his point would be, like, better? I'm not sure it would be bulletproof, but it would be better. But instead what he gives as justification is that the shoulder missile is from Earth and the ship is not from Earth, which is kind of laughably illogical. We already went over last time how Earth technology in the MCU has been under the influence of alien technology and researching alien technology since the first Avengers film. The idea that humans would use researching alien tech as a means to upgrade their own technology is a logical assumption on its own. But even beyond that, we explicitly saw that's what people were doing in Spider-Man Homecoming. That alien tech that humanity has been researching and learning from since 2012 is the exact same alien tech that Thanos uses in his invasions. But even forgetting that, you could argue that the way Earth has been presented to us in the MCU, that the only technology we're lacking and aliens have is FTL travel, which isn't something that really comes into play when you're blowing a hole in something. But apparently the ship should have been undamaged by the missile because of the missile's inherent earthiness, and this marks the halfway point of the series.
The hell is this spray stuff Tony's using here to seal the breach in the ship's hull? Nano magic? Canned convenience? It's magic whiz and it's cheesing me off.
Oh, I don't know, maybe it's the nanotech it's already been well established he can use to build anything he really needs. Wait a second, that's one of the options he gave for his answer?
Nano magic?
Well, I guess that changes this from a sin demonstrating ignorance to a sin demonstrating that Jeremy personally doesn't really like something very much. In part 2, I already covered a very similar sin to this one, which was also about the nanotech, and for this one I'll refer you to the answer that I gave for that one. The sin here seems to be that he personally doesn't like it, which he's allowed to do and he's allowed to talk about. So even though I disagree personally, this is fine. A Minecraft stack.
Way to introduce a new character in the movie in the 19th film of a franchise and completely kill him off in an hour. Darth Maul and Ebony Maw are now in some 7th circle of movie franchise hell, where they were told they were special and mull their fates with Maul Flanders at the Hades Mall.
So the only way I could really approach calling this one inaccurate would be to say that actually Ebony Maw dies off in an hour and 1 minute. But no, as far as accuracy goes, this is all fine. He's introduced here and he's killed off approximately in an hour. There is, however, nothing wrong with that. His being killed off isn't to the detriment of the film, making this an irrelevant comment. Which leads us to the question, is this filler or is this an attempt at humour? And I think this is an attempt at humour. There are some puns in there. I know that CinemaSins isn't supposed to be taken seriously, not everything they say is intended as criticism, and within that framework this is fine. Let's move on. We've almost got to the sex number.
So I say we take the fight to him.
Granted, the ship you're on is going to him, and you haven't stated declaratively that you can turn the ship around, despite being asked twice by Strange. Maybe this is less of a choice than the movie or Tony wants to make it seem.
Given we see them pilot and turn the ship in this film, this is just straight up not true.
We might want to turn.
While they do fail there, they clearly demonstrate that they know how to turn and pilot the ship. This is another just like really dumb sin. I don't even know why this is in here.
All the stuff they added in just to create bloat.
Jeremy brings up the fact they haven't said they can turn the ship around as evidence they can't, while ignoring the fact that they demonstrate they can turn the fucking ship. Oh, hang on, no, sorry, I'm just being informed now that it's sarcasm and correctness mixed together with no meaningful distinction between the two. Of course, how could I not see that? Seems like a pretty convenient get-out-of-jail-free card, doesn't it? If we're wrong, we're being sarcastic. Absolutely, because a great sign of sarcasm is when no one can fucking tell it's sarcasm. Another thing that sticks out to me about this sin is when Jeremy says,
Maybe this is less of a choice than the movie or Tony wants to make it seem.
Because this is also silly. Tony wants to go to Titan. He has no reason to try and make it seem like it's a choice, because he doesn't need to be having this argument. It also doesn't follow that the movie would want to make it seem like this is a choice, because the movie can just decide that they do have a choice. Them having a choice here doesn't contradict anything else that happens in the film. In fact, it explicitly gels with it. An equivalent comment would be, does Thanos really have all the Infinity Stones? I don't think he has as many stones as the movie wants us to think he does. The number of the devil, almost a bit. Okay, I challenge you to make all of the numbers from 1 to like 120 seem interesting.
Your planet was on the brink of collapse. I'm the one who stopped that. Do you know what's happened since then?
I don't know, has 50% of the planet multiplied and brought it back to pre-Thanos population numbers? I guess you plan on snapping the universe back to half its people every 20 years or so?
This is an interesting one I see come up every so often in just people criticizing Infinity War, and I would like to point out it's not universally true. Now, I have done research on this, but this is by no means a field I know much about, so please correct me if I make any mistakes here. In much of the developed world, birth rates are below replacement rate. It's my understanding that humanity's huge influx in population happened because technology improved before the birth rates dropped, meaning that more children survived, meaning a huge influx in population. Unless Thanos' snap causes the birth rate to shoot back up, which is a possibility, Thanos' snap would permanently reduce the population. Now, this sort of, what even is this, social science? Definitely isn't my area. So I'm just going to call this sin debatable and move on. If this is an area that you're an expert in, please let me know your conclusions on it. It's not long to go now.
Ultimately, sisterly love is what causes her to give up the location of the Soul Stone, and therefore the fate of the entire universe. She begged her boyfriend to kill her, rather than let Thanos win.
So while everything actually said in this sin is accurate, Jeremy is saying it to imply a character inconsistency. Or at the very least, if he's not implying a character inconsistency, then this is just an irrelevant comment. It's just pointing out the thing that happened. Yeah, that's it. So for the rest of this one, I'm going to operate under the assumption that he is calling this a character inconsistency, because otherwise this is completely pointless, humorless filler.
To create bloat.
He does understand that people are much more willing to let themselves die than people they love die? Or is that a new concept to him?
Maybe he doesn't love anybody.
Like, I
Maybe
would
nobody
ask
loves
him
him.
genuinely as a human being. I'd be like, would you listen to your brother/sister being tortured extensively, knowing that you have to say one word to prevent it from happening? I guess he wouldn't, if he knew that it would save the world.
I don't know if Jeremy's been in the location. I've been in like search and rescue and stuff. It's pretty tough to listen to people scream in agony.
And not to mention,
If you haven't
there are
been in that
people.
situation, it's pretty fucking gut wrenching.
So I just can't believe you're breaking this down like rationally. Like rationally, she should allow her sister to be tortured indefinitely. It's like, you know what? You're not wrong.
The Guardians films have spent ages getting Nebula and Gamora's relationship to this point.
You were the one who wanted to win, and I just wanted a sister!
Guilt can be an incredibly powerful emotion, and the MCU has spent ages building it up in Gamora.
Because of you.
The fact that her guilt overpowers her to make her irrational is definitely not out of character for her, and is something the MCU has been building towards for ages. This character moment works absolutely fine. This sin is useless, humorless filler at best, and wrong at worst. I am actually shitting myself waiting for the next one.
And I'm getting a new hammer.
In Thor 33 1/3, Odin told him his hammer was just something that focused his power. Now that's been forgotten, and a hammer is important again.
The evidence used to support this sin is accurate. It is absolutely true to the events of Ragnarok. However, what Jeremy is doing here is extrapolating more meaning from this scene than was actually there. At no point is it said that Thor's hammer was useless.
Just something that focused his power sounds important.
I was about to say, that's Jay, you made the same point in your video, right?
I did, yeah.
And now I'm about to make it again, but with more sources. My favourite source, apart from mayonnaise, is this one.
Don't you think that we should all have a weapon like that? No. You simply lack the strength to wield them. Your bodies would crumple as your minds collapsed into madness.
Where it's made abundantly clear that Thor's power is still an important part of wielding Stormbreaker. Everything that Odin said is still being kept true to by Infinity War.
I love that he just doesn't notice it himself. Like, Odin's like, hey, you don't need it for power, but it's good to focus your power. And then he's like, oh, it's important again. It's like, I don't know, focus sounds important.
It's like, I've never seen this video before, ever, and it was just like my knee-jerk reaction to that. It's like, that didn't pass the smell test.
I've waited so long for this, I don't know what to do now. Surely there's something funny I could say. Oh, I fucking missed it.
You're gonna need more than one stupid eyeball.
But you're handing him a fake eyeball, so he still only has one stupid eyeball, right? What the f***? Some random computerized alien eyeball has a connection port that matches Thor's flesh-based eye socket connection port?
So it's another instance of let's sin the unexplained technology. Although unlike the sin about holographic Ross, he doesn't say anything that's actually wrong here to try and make this sound more ridiculous than it actually is. However, what we see the eye doing here doesn't contradict its own function or mechanics as we understand it. Like for instance when you see holograms sitting in a chair when by what we understand of the nature of holograms that would require an identical chair to work.
What about the droid attack on the Wookiees?
The eye is more comparable to, say, lightsabers. Based on our current understanding of science, there would be no way to build this. But the movie is telling us that this is just something advanced that we currently don't understand. And since it hasn't broken any of its own rules, that's absolutely fine. Vision bat. Again, in terms of actual film criticism, this wouldn't really be a valid nitpick. It's not inaccurate to the film in any way, it's just something that's irrelevant to its quality. It's essentially Jeremy going, wait, this advanced piece of technology is advanced? Oh! What also strikes me as strange about this part of the video in general is that they don't sin one of the most sinnable lines in the film.
I don't think this thing works. Everything seems dark.
Thor, what the fuck are you talking about? You have two eyes! Also, it's really light inside the ship. What the fuck is this line? Why was this in here? Plus, we can even see the dark thing he's referring to. And even that wouldn't make you go, oh, I don't think my eye works, because you could fucking see it. It's there. It's just a bit dark. This is like looking out the window at nighttime and going, oh my god, I've gone blind in one eye.
It ain't the eye.
No, Rocket, it's not the eye. I think it's his brain. So I'm quite sad that we don't have Sin 69 to look forward to anymore.
Oh. This is the second Marvel movie to waste Peter Dinklage.
Wait, what other... Oh, Days of Future Past. Okay.
Oh yeah, that's true. Wait, he wasn't wasted in either of these movies, though.
Yeah, I don't see how he's wasted in this movie or Days of Future Past.
I
was just trying to figure out... I was just trying to figure out which one he was actually in, because I was like, I don't remember him being in the MCU.
I was thinking, if you don't justify the statement that he was wasted in this, then people just have to sort of be like,
oh yeah, okay. He was wasted. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, the people who agree. People who don't. Moving on. That's all. I feel like that's how these videos are designed, isn't it?
Well, yeah. Here's the ding. Don't ask me why.
He's much better about ensuring the excellence, and I'm always more interested in moving on to the next thing. I'm like a dog that sees a car and wants to chase it. I just want to do something new all the time, and he keeps me grounded by making sure that everything we put out is excellent before we move on.
Maybe you should replace him. So this is a sin saying that the movie wasted Peter Dinklage. And even when this kind of criticism is perfectly accurate, it's a non-criticism because getting an actor who's overqualified for a part isn't actually an issue with a film. On the other hand though, it's totally fair that some people can find that frustrating. To see an actor you like and have them not do very much can be annoying. So CinemaSins are completely reasonable to feel this way. While this is a criticism, I can't really call it accurate or inaccurate because it's just a feeling. It's not something that makes the film worse, but it is reasonable to comment on and reasonable to get frustrated by. There's really nothing of substance for me to dig my teeth into here, so I'm not gonna try to. Another sin for the 100% subjective category. Sin 70 One.
And he killed everyone anyway, all except me.
Let me me do some math here. 300 dwarves were here, 1 is left, carry the 9, multiply by pi r squared, that's 99.67% of the dwarf population, which means he must have let 299 other dwarves on some other hammer building station live.
I know I've already used this clip, but it felt appropriate here as well. This one was silly. So let's do multiple choice for a second here. A. The movie is suggesting to us that Thanos had motivation to kill all of these people, considering they're a group of people who can create weapons of the quote-unquote Thanos killing kind. Or B. The writers got to this point and went, hang on, fuck, how many people does Thanos kill again? Shit, he killed all of them, fuck it. Wait, shit, he's only supposed to kill half? Oh, shit, I guess there's nothing we can do about that now. We've written it down in the script, which means it's finalized. This is hyperbole, but it doesn't stop the sin from being really silly. It seems in this video, CinemaSins have got a lot of mileage out of pointing out an instance in which Thanos doesn't kill half, or hasn't made sure he's killing exactly half, or stuff of that nature, and going, isn't Thanos supposed to be killing exactly half of all people he encounters regardless of context or circumstances, even though no one ever said that? And the answer to that, surprisingly enough, is no. Like in the beginning of the film, when even after killing half the Asgardians, he still kills Loki and Heimdall, simply because in the situation he's in, it's the smart thing to do. This behavior could be considered in character for Thanos even if we knew he'd killed all of the dwarf population, but we don't even know that.
Does he think this is the entire dwarf population? They just live in a foundry and that's it?
Yeah, that seems unreasonable. But
I would assume naturally that this is just a place they work, they commute here.
Don't they have like...
Which means he must have let 299 other dwarves on some other hammer building station live.
I mean, yeah, do you not think it's unreasonable to assume that these 300 dwarves are the only dwarves in the entire universe? The implications made by this sin are honestly ridiculous. And that's all the sins I want to cover for today, so let's get into amendments. Or amendment. There's only one this time. And it's very quick. Are you ready for this? When I was talking about Vision and Wanda being snuck up on by the Green Goblin in part 3, Jeremy asked how they didn't sense, see, or hear him coming, and I said it's obvious why they didn't see or hear him, and they don't have any extra senses to sense him with. This isn't strictly speaking true, as Scarlet Witch has telepathy. However, it's my understanding that this is a power she has to use on purpose, and it's not just sort of a passive thing that happens randomly with the people near her. Meaning that I was wrong, but the actual validity of Jeremy's sin hasn't changed. Okay, and while I'm here, I feel it's only fair to mention this thing that lots of people were bringing up in the comments. Thanos only killed half of Gamora's people, but in Guardians we learnt she was the last of her people. I called this a loose end, to which lots of people said, what if her people just died since then? And yeah, that is totally possible, but it shouldn't be up to the viewer to explain away little inconsistencies like this. Unless this plays into the story later, which is a possibility, there's no reason for them to have put this in. It's something that shouldn't be true based on our understanding of the world, and we essentially have to fill in the gaps ourselves to make it make sense. That's why it's a loose end. Alright, and that's everything. I really hope you've enjoyed. Based on our current rate of progress, we're going to finish this series by part 7, probably. And then after that, I'll do like sort of a summary where I add up all of the results and what I found and stuff. I'll see you on Sunday, and that's actually true this time, I'm sorry. Goodbye.